Good evening, everyone. I want to talk about something that's deeply human, something we all face at one time or another, confronting the darkness in others. It's the moment when someone's true nature is revealed to us, when we begin to see behind the mask of charm or authority or whatever else they've used to disguise their intentions. We've all had those moments, haven't we? The ones where you realize that someone you trusted or someone in your circle has been playing a different game than the one you thought you were both in. It's tough. It feels like a betrayal. But here's the thing. When we know that someone has been less than authentic with us, it's their response to us knowing their truth that can tell us the most. When someone realizes that their true intentions are being seen for what they are, their immediate response is often one of defensiveness. But this defensiveness isn't just about protecting their reputation or salvaging their image. It's a form of attack. It's about shifting the power dynamic back into their favor. They're no longer the one in the position of strength. Now they're scrambling, and that fear can manifest in aggression. The aggression comes from a place of panic. They know that they've been exposed, and they can't bear to face the consequences of their actions. The most vulnerable thing a person can do is admit to their faults and take accountability for the harm they've caused. But instead of showing this vulnerability, they'll do everything in their power to protect themselves, no matter the cost. What does that look like? First, they might try to invalidate your perception of the situation. They'll start by denying that anything is wrong at all. You're overreacting, they'll say. You've misunderstood what happened, they'll claim. At this point, they might even accuse you of being paranoid or too sensitive. They want you to second guess what you know to be true. This isn't a simple defensive move. It's a manipulation tactic designed to confuse and make you question your reality. The more uncertain you become, the easier it is for them to regain control. Second, they may raise their voice, become visibly agitated, or escalate the situation in order to make you back down. Instead of addressing the substance of the issue, they'll focus on overpowering you with their emotions, creating an environment where they are the ones in control of the conversation. This could come in the form of anger, threats, or even subtle intimidation. Their goal isn't just to defend themselves, it's to put you in a position where you're too scared, too overwhelmed, or too unsure to stand firm in your truth. In this moment, they're counting on your discomfort. They hope that their aggressive behavior will force you to retreat. They're not interested in resolution, they're interested in maintaining dominance. They want you to be the one who feels unsafe or uncertain so that they can go back to pretending that everything is normal. The emotional toll this takes on you can be heavy. It forces you into a position where you're forced to either accept their narrative or constantly battle against it, draining your energy in the process. Third, they might use guilt as a weapon. Once they realize that being aggressive isn't enough to keep you quiet, they'll try to manipulate your sense of morality. I can't believe you would accuse me of something like that, they might say. I've done so much for you. How could you turn on me like this? They might remind you of favors they've done for you or how much they've supposedly helped you in the past. This is an effort to make you feel guilty for speaking up. They want you to believe that exposing them will make you the villain in this scenario rather than the person who was hurt by their actions. The aggression may become more calculated and indirect. Instead of a full-on confrontation, they may choose passive-aggressive methods. They might start giving you the silent treatment, making snide remarks, or gossiping about you behind your back. They want to create an environment where you feel as though you're the problem, where you're isolated from the rest of the world because you dare to speak the truth. The silence can be just as suffocating as direct confrontation, and it's designed to wear you down over time. This behavior is a reflection of their inability to take responsibility for their actions. They want to maintain the illusion of control even when they know they've been caught. Their anger is an expression of powerlessness. They know deep down that their lies have been exposed, and this is their way of trying to prevent the floodgates from opening further. They're trying to make you feel like you're the one in the wrong for simply seeing them clearly. But here's the important part. They're not angry at you. They're angry at themselves. It's their shame that drives the aggression. They can't bear to look in the mirror and admit to their flaws. And instead of doing the hard work of facing that shame, they lash out at others. So when you find yourself confronted with defensive and aggressive behavior, remember that it's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of their inner turmoil and inability to confront their own darkness. It's also an opportunity for you to stay grounded in your truth. You don't need to get sucked into the whirlwind of their defensiveness. Instead, you can calmly stand in your authenticity, knowing that their aggression is only a temporary shield to protect themselves from the hard work they need to do. Gaslighting is one of the most insidious forms of manipulation. It's a strategy that evil people often use when they know their deceptive behavior has been uncovered. The goal of gaslighting is to undermine your confidence in your own perceptions and reality, making you question what you know to be true. It's a psychological tactic that erodes your sense of self-trust, and in the worst cases, it can lead you to feel like you're losing touch with reality altogether. At its core, gaslighting is about control. The person employing this tactic wants to shift the power dynamic between you. They want to hold the reins. And to do so, they must convince you that you're wrong, even when your instincts and evidence tell you otherwise. This is where the real danger lies. It's not just about distorting the facts, it's about distorting your perception of those facts. Gaslighting is a betrayal of trust, and it's not just emotional manipulation, it's a systematic attempt to make you feel as if you cannot trust yourself. First, the gaslighter may begin by denying things that you know are true. That didn't happen, they might say, even when you have clear evidence that it did. They might deny promises they made to you or deny their actions in situations where you were both present. This form of denial serves a very specific purpose. It's meant to create confusion. If they can make you doubt even the simplest facts, things you know to be true, they can begin to chip away at your confidence in your own thoughts and feelings. Over time, this kind of denial erodes your ability to trust your memory and judgment. You might begin to second guess yourself. Did I misinterpret that? Am I overreacting? And that's exactly what the gaslighter wants. They thrive on this confusion because it makes you more dependent on them for validation. The more they deny, the more you begin to question what's real, and the easier it becomes for them to manipulate you into accepting their version of reality. Second, gaslighters may manipulate your emotions to further disorient you. They often use phrases like, "You're being too sensitive," or "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" In this phase, they try to paint you as the one who is irrational or emotional, even though you're reacting to something that's been done to you. They shift the narrative so that it's your emotional response that becomes the focus of the conversation, not the behavior that triggered it. This tactic is designed to make you feel as though you're overreacting, that you're the one causing tension or drama, when in reality, they're the ones creating the problem. The impact of this is powerful because it directly challenges your emotional responses. When you've been manipulated to believe that your feelings are wrong, you begin to suppress them. You become reluctant to express how you feel or share your truth because you fear being labeled as too much or too emotional. Gaslighters want to silence you, and the best way they can do that is by making you feel like your emotions are invalid or unjustified. Third, they will twist the facts and make you feel crazy. Gaslighting can escalate to a point where the manipulator doesn't just deny events, They invent entirely new versions of reality. They may tell you, that never happened. You must be imagining things, or I never said that. You must have misunderstood me. If the person gaslighting you is skilled enough, they'll create alternative versions of reality so convincing that even you start to believe them. This is the most dangerous aspect of gaslighting. It blurs the line between what's real and what's been distorted. In some extreme cases, they might even try to change the context of past events. If you bring up a situation where they were in the wrong, they'll redefine the event as if the roles were reversed. I was only trying to help you, they might say, when in reality their behavior was self-serving. The goal is to manipulate you into thinking you're the one who misremembered the situation, or that your feelings were irrational when in fact the problem lies with them. They make you feel like you're the one who's unreliable, not them. Fourth, gaslighters will often try to isolate you from others who might offer clarity. They'll try to convince you that others are also misunderstanding you, or that those who are close to you are biased or too protective. If you reach out for support, they'll question the motives of others or sow seeds of doubt about who you can trust. Your friend is just telling you what you want to hear, they might say. They don't understand the situation like I do. By isolating you from people who can offer perspective, they make it harder for you to see their behavior for what it truly is. Once you're isolated and have no one to turn to, you're left in a place where the gaslighter has total control over the narrative. And you're in a bubble of their creation where only their version of events holds weight. Without outside input, it becomes harder to realize that you're being manipulated. Gaslighters will often use your vulnerabilities against you. They know your weaknesses, the things that make you feel insecure or uncertain, and they will exploit these to deepen the manipulation. If they sense that you're sensitive to rejection, for example, they might make you feel as though your concerns are a burden to them, subtly reinforcing that you're unworthy of love or respect. They will play on your deepest fears, creating a situation where you feel small and powerless, constantly doubting your own instincts. Gaslighting is a slow process. It happens in small, seemingly insignificant ways, making it difficult to recognize at first. But over time, its impact can be profound. It can leave you questioning your own mind, unsure of what's real or what's been distorted. And that's the true purpose of gaslighting, to break down your sense of self, your confidence, and your truth, so that you'll remain dependent on the gaslighter for your sense of reality. The key to breaking free from gaslighting is to trust yourself. Trust your memories, trust your emotions, trust your instincts. Even when someone tries to convince you otherwise, you know your truth, and sometimes recognizing the manipulation is the first step toward regaining control over your own life. Isolation is one of the most subtle and destructive tactics employed by people who seek to manipulate, control, or undermine others. When someone realizes that you know their true nature and intentions, one of the first strategies they may use is to isolate you from the support and connections that would empower you to see things more clearly. It is a gradual, insidious tactic that preys on your emotions, your sense of belonging, and your need for validation. And while it may not always be visible on the surface, the effects of isolation can be deeply damaging. Isolation doesn't necessarily mean that someone will physically distance you from others, though in some cases that may happen. Instead, it's about gradually severing the emotional, social, and mental ties that keep you grounded in your own reality. The person doing the isolating may not even realize the full scope of what they're doing. They might frame their actions as caring or protective, when in reality they are designed to weaken your independence and increase your dependence on them. First, one of the primary ways isolation takes shape is through emotional manipulation. The manipulator may begin by planting seeds of doubt about the people in your life. They'll question the motives of your friends, family, or colleagues, making you feel as though those around you don't truly have your best interests at heart. I don't think your friend really understands you, they might say. They don't know what it's like to deal with what you're going through. Slowly, they begin to portray themselves as the only person who truly understands you, subtly undermining your confidence in your relationships with others. At first, these comments may seem harmless. After all, we all know that friendships and relationships can be complicated and disagreements are normal. But over time, these small comments add up. They begin to create a narrative where you start to question the loyalty and reliability of the people around you. The manipulator is isolating you emotionally from those who would support you, casting doubt on your relationships so that you feel more and more alone. The deeper this isolation goes, the less likely you are to reach out for help when you need it, because you've been conditioned to believe that others won't understand or be there for you. Second, the manipulator may start to isolate you from the group, from your friends, or from any community that you once felt connected to. This can manifest in a number of ways, such as encouraging you to cut ties with certain people, or subtly convincing you that you shouldn't participate in social gatherings or events. Do you really need to go out with them again? They might ask. They never treat you the way you deserve. Over time, the person trying to isolate you may push you to spend more time with them, subtly discouraging you from interacting with others or becoming involved in activities that might make you feel more grounded or confident. The goal is to make you feel as though your only place of refuge, your only real connection, is with the manipulator. They may try to make you feel guilty for spending time with others, using phrases like, "I miss you," when you're with them, or "You always choose them over me." They want to create an emotional bond with you where they are your primary source of support, so that when you are isolated from everyone else, they have a firm hold on you. By disconnecting you from your social circles, they gain more influence over you, creating a space where their version of reality is the only one you are exposed to. Third, they may engage in covert forms of guilt tripping, which can make you feel as though you don't have the right to maintain your independence or pursue outside relationships. For example, they might say things like, "I've always been here for you, but when I need you, you don't seem to be around." Or, "If you really cared about me, you wouldn't spend so much time with them." These statements are designed to make you feel responsible for their emotional state and to believe that your need for connection with others is selfish or harmful. By making you feel guilty, they try to convince you that your relationships with others are causing harm so that you choose to distance yourself. What happens when this isolation continues is a steady erosion of your sense of self. As you spend more and more time with the manipulator and less time with the people who bring you strength, your sense of identity becomes more reliant on the manipulator's approval and validation. Your perception of what is normal begins to shift. The opinions of others start to matter less, while the manipulator's views and behavior take on more weight. This is a dangerous shift because when you begin to lose connection with the outside world, you lose the clarity and support that can help you break free from the manipulator's grip. Fourth, isolation can also manifest as a form of emotional exhaustion, a tactic that slowly wears you down over time. If the manipulator has gradually cut you off from others and you are spending more and more time in their presence, they may start to make increasingly unreasonable demands on your time and energy. They may demand constant attention, seeking to monopolize your emotional resources, making you feel as though you owe them all of your focus and care. This continuous emotional investment with no outlet for relief will wear you out, and you may begin to feel too drained or too dependent on them to think clearly or take action. Eventually, when you are emotionally exhausted and isolated, the manipulator becomes your sole source of validation and support. Their reality is the only one you have access to, and without outside perspectives to counterbalance their influence, you are more susceptible to the distortion of truth. You begin to accept their version of events as the only reality because you no longer have access to others who might help you see things from a different perspective. Once the isolation has been fully established, the manipulator might use it as a way to control you more overtly. If they know you have no other source of emotional support, they can use that isolation as a form of leverage. They may manipulate you into complying with their desires or demands, knowing that you have nowhere else to turn for advice or emotional strength. If you start to question their actions or behavior, they might point out how isolated you've become, subtly reinforcing that you're all I have and that you can't leave or seek out others without risking losing them. Isolation in its most effective form makes you feel trapped. Trapped in a relationship, trapped in a situation where your independence and your identity are no longer your own. It makes you feel as though the only way to maintain connection, love, or support is to remain within the manipulator's grasp. But the truth is, isolation is an illusion. We all have the power to reconnect. We all have the ability to reach out and rebuild the bridges that were burned. You are never truly alone, no matter how much the manipulator tries to make you believe otherwise. Projection is one of the most potent yet subtle tactics used by individuals who are trying to evade accountability for their own negative actions. When someone realizes that you know what they've done, one of their immediate responses may be to project their own flaws, fears, or misdeeds onto you. It's a psychological defense mechanism that allows them to transfer their undesirable feelings or behaviors onto others, making you the scapegoat for their internal struggles. Projection is a way for them to avoid facing the reality of their own actions, as it keeps the blame squarely on your shoulders rather than theirs. At its core, projection is a form of emotional manipulation that distorts reality. Instead of dealing with their own shortcomings, mistakes, or negative emotions, the person engages in a harmful process where they convince themselves and others that you are the one exhibiting those same qualities. It's a twisted reversal of blame, turning the mirror around and distorting your image until you look like the villain. All the while, they remain comfortably in the position of victim or innocent party. First, projection often starts with the person projecting their own insecurities. If they feel threatened by your self-confidence or sense of autonomy, they may begin to accuse you of being arrogant or overly self-centered. They may say, "You think you know everything," or "You always think you're right, don't you?" The truth is, they may be deeply insecure about their own abilities, so they project that insecurity onto you in an attempt to undermine your confidence and make you doubt your own worth. This tactic serves two purposes. It shifts attention away from their own vulnerabilities and puts the spotlight on your perceived flaws. Additionally, it lowers your self-esteem. When someone constantly projects their insecurities onto you, it creates an atmosphere where you begin to feel like you have something to prove. Instead of feeling empowered by your confidence, you start second-guessing yourself, wondering whether you're as self-assured as you think or whether you're actually the arrogant person they claim you are. Second, projection can be used to deflect blame and responsibility for wrongdoing. If they've hurt you or done something wrong, they may accuse you of the very things they've done to you. For example, if they've lied or manipulated you, they might accuse you of being deceitful. If they've been emotionally distant or they might accuse you of being cold and unloving. The manipulator tries to turn the tables by projecting their guilt or wrongdoing onto you, making you feel as though you are the one at fault for the situation. This tactic is effective because it confuses the victim. They know that something is wrong, but when the person projects their own negative behavior onto them, it can create doubt and a sense of moral confusion. Am I the one who's been dishonest? Am I really as manipulative as they say? You may begin to ask yourself. What's happening is that they are trying to make you feel responsible for their actions so that you become so consumed with their accusations that you lose sight of their true behavior. It's a clever manipulative move that keeps them from having to face the consequences of their actions. Third, projection can also be a method of undermining your emotions or dismissing your concerns. For instance, if you express hurt or frustration over something they've done, they might accuse you of being overly sensitive, dramatic, or emotional. You're just too emotional about this, they might say. Or you always blow things out of proportion. In this case, they're projecting their own inability to acknowledge and process their own emotions onto you. Instead of dealing with their own feelings of guilt or shame, they displace those feelings onto you, labeling your emotional responses as inappropriate or excessive. The goal of this tactic is twofold. First, it invalidates your feelings and minimizes your experience, making you feel as though your emotions are out of line. Second, it shifts the focus from their own emotional shortcomings to your overreaction. In doing so, they avoid the uncomfortable task of facing their own emotional damage. Projection in this context is a tool to keep you from confronting the reality of what has happened, and instead it forces you into a position where you feel like you are the problem for being upset. Over time, this can make you feel like your emotional responses are always wrong, and you may begin to distrust your ability to process your feelings. Fourth, projection can be used to disguise a manipulator's aggressive tendencies. If someone has been abusive, whether emotionally, physically, or psychologically, they may accuse you of being the aggressive one. They might say, you're the one who's always angry, or you're always shouting and causing a scene. This projection can be especially dangerous because it paints the abuser as the victim and the victim as the aggressor. It's a tactic that distorts the narrative, making it appear as though you are the one causing the problems, when in reality, the aggressor is trying to evade accountability for their actions. In situations like these, projection can make you feel isolated and confused. If the manipulator has been projecting aggression onto you for long enough, you might start questioning whether your reactions to their behavior are truly disproportionate. But when you step back and observe the situation objectively, you realize that their projections are simply a way for them to avoid facing the harm they've caused. Projection keeps them in control by inverting the power dynamic and making you feel as though you're the one to blame, even when you're simply defending yourself. Projection can manifest in the form of identity confusion. The manipulator may try to attribute their own personal qualities to you in a way that makes you feel as though you are the one who is misrepresenting yourself. They may accuse you of having ulterior motives when you're simply acting out of goodwill, or they might try to paint you as someone who is dishonest or untrustworthy, even when your actions prove the opposite. The purpose of this form of projection is to discredit your integrity and confuse your sense of self. They want you to question whether the person you think you are is the person they're describing. This type of projection works because it creates a cognitive dissonance between who you know yourself to be and who they are claiming you are. It creates an internal conflict where you start to wonder whether there's some truth to their accusations. Over time, this confusion can destabilize your sense of self-worth, and you may begin to believe that maybe you are the person they say you are.